Following the Second World War, nearly every nation on Earth fell under the political, economic, and/or military influence of either the United States or the Soviet Union. After the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1991, the United States became the Earth's sole superpower. Globalization, interdependent economic capitalism, corporatism, and socialized democracy seemed to be the only model of the vast majority of the world. Through the end of the 1990s and well into the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan, it was clear which country dictated the fate of nations, and, for a moment, the United States appeared to be at the apogee of its global power. There were no rivals. Any nation's government could be deposed at a whim. However, as these invasions, occupations, and attempted nation-building spiraled into catastrophic failure, as the out-of-touch aims of the Bush administration offered no realistic solution for their own debacle, a new precedent assumed the helm of the United States. A few key events relating to the so-called Arab Spring solidified the chronic impotency of American foreign policy. The United States encouraged the ouster of strongmen and dictators that had been longtime U.S. allies and forces of stability in the Near East. Two great blunders have diminished American prestige and desirability as an ally. First was the ouster of Muammar Gaddafi. In the years leading up to his death, he had become a recent U.S. ally in the War on Terror, influenced by the events of the Iraq War in December 2003. Gaddafi renounced his possessions of weapons of mass destruction, decommissioning his chemical and nuclear weapons programs that he had allegedly possessed, and after complying with essentially every U.S. demand, helping with intelligence hunting down Al-Qaeda, mitigating illegal immigration to Europe.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
Did it have anything to do with your visit?
No, I'm sure it did.
The desert is blooming again, and we can be so proud.
The shocking reversal of fortune and rapid demise of Gaddafi and the Libyan state was a mere bleep on the radar of even most politically aware Americans. However, abroad, this was a much more poignant and resonant event. In contrast to Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi bent over backwards to cooperate with the U.S., importantly disarming many alleged weapons programs. Now, among others, North Korea and Iran have cited the downfall of Gaddafi as a cautionary tale of why one should not trust and/or cooperate with the United States, and that their respective missile and atomic programs are necessary to ward off a U.S.-led invasion. The second blunder has been the U.S. attempt at deposing Bashar al-Assad of Syria. While backing rebels that ultimately were killed off, dominated by, absorbed, and transformed in what would become ISIS, the U.S. plan was incoherently chaotic, and directly opposed by Russian Vladimir Putin, who came to his allies' aid, doubling down and ultimately defeating the U.S.-backed rebels. Syria has been a massive moral and propaganda victory for Russia over the United States. They have proven themselves to be a dependable ally, and in the end I believe they were on the side of the far lesser of two evils. Secular strongman Assad is not great, but he is far better than the radical alternatives Syria has faced. After initially firing missiles and shooting down a few of Assad's planes, President Trump cut funding for the surreptitiously labeled moderate rebel groups in Syria. ISIS-controlled territory quickly collapsed afterwards. Although U.S. military technology and military spending currently still dwarfs any other nation by far, U.S. foreign policy has been strategically impotent and counterproductive since after 9/11, and has lost the U.S. far more friends than it has made. Key past allies, like Turkey and the Philippines, have been continuously strengthening ties with Russia, and a host of smaller and mid-sized nations do not view the United States as a benevolent stabilizing force, but as a force of chaos and instability. Chinese and Russian ties are now closer than at any point when these two nations were fellow communists. The world seems to be moving back to a multipolar world. Many believe it is only a matter of time till the US dollar is no longer the predominant currency for trading oil. And, if that ever becomes the case, the demand for US debt will plummet, and the US will lack the resources to fuel its bloated military. Many believe the real U.S. motivation to depose Saddam Hussein is because of the fact that he sought to trade Iraqi oil in euros instead of dollars. Also, WikiLeaks seemed to confirm the ouster of Gaddafi was related to the fact that he had planned the creation of the Pan-African gold dinar, which would be the only currency accepted to purchase African oil. So those have been my thoughts on the U.S. decline in global influence. I believe it is not a military spending issue at all, but the lack of strategic focus that has caused the decline in the U.S. influence abroad. I believe the U.S. has no clear long-term goals in creating and strengthening meaningful alliances. The Germans, the French, and the Brits, I think, will maintain close ties with the U.S., but large up-and-comers like Brazil and India, I think, will look to the East more and more for reliable partners. Playing the world policeman and going after Iran, North Korea will buy the U.S. no prestige or influence in the international community over time. Chasing boogeymen and creating chaos seems to be the only strategy in the U.S. playbook, which needs to be abandoned. That is my opinion. I could be wrong, but that is the way things seem to be going. So